think one of the biggest reasons we struggle to change isn't because we're lazy. It's because every time we tell ourselves, I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and we don't do it again, we're collecting evidence that our own word doesn't mean very much. And after enough times, it stops feeling like procrastination. It starts feeling like that's just who we are. But what if the problem isn't your discipline? What if you've just been unknowingly teaching yourself not to trust your own voice? Because the moment I realized that, I completely changed the way I set goals, the way I built habits, and the way I just started showing up for myself. Welcome to the Alara podcast. I'm Naomi Gershik and I'll be your host for today's episode. At Yalara, we're exploring what it means to redefine modern womanhood on our own terms, to move beyond inherited expectations, external definitions of success, and the paths we've been told we're supposed to follow. Through conversations about identity, alignment, self-trust, personal growth, and building a life that genuinely feels like your own, we're creating a space for women who know there has to be another way forward. Not just individually, but together. It's always weird when I start an episode because I can quite easily get talking about the topic that I want to speak about for today, but it's difficult because I also want to warm up and make sure my thoughts are running to start the episode really clearly. And actually starting is pretty difficult because I want it to be strong and I want it to feel that it lands with you directly, immediately. But actually getting to the point of hitting record still makes me want to procrastinate it. Because I don't like feeling monitored. I don't like that. And I anticipate a lot. And so I build it up in my head as way more than it is. When actually I come to sit down and I hit record, I feel so natural about it. And I love the process. I love speaking my thoughts out loud. I love sitting with the thoughts, letting them unfold. And I really, really love podcasting. When I'm doing it, it doesn't feel anything like what I've been anticipating. But because I know once I've hit record, all the stars have to be aligned and it has to be perfect. I have to be comfortable and ready to be sat there for however long it takes to record the episode. I have to make sure my voice is prepped and I don't have a croaky voice. I have to make sure my energy is right and I have enough energy to speak freely. But what I'm doing is I'm creating so much pressure on myself for it to be perfect. And so every time I then don't sit down and hit record and I go, oh, you know what? It's too late now. I'll just do it tomorrow. And that kind of ties into the theme of today's episode, because every time I do that, I'm breaking trust with myself and I'm breaking my love for podcasting. Just the next time I get reminded of that love is when I actually do sit down and record. When I remove that pressure, if I need to pause halfway through, then I'll just record anyway. Actually, it means that I trust myself to podcast more and to show up more. When we sit with the feelings that come from procrastination and breaking the promises we've set with ourselves and not doing what we said we're going to do, the guilt or the shame and the negative feelings associated with what we're anticipating, we end up associating that task with those negative feelings rather than the positives of what it is actually like. How many times do we believe something is going to be so much worse than it is, and then in the moment, maybe there are moments where it can get hard and difficult, but actually overall we really loved it and we really enjoyed it. How many times? I'm sure loads of people, the more they get done, the more they feel that they can keep going and can keep achieving and finishing. It's so true. When we just start, and it doesn't have to be perfect, when we're not trying to make all the stars align and give the best conditions possible, we stop sitting with the negative feelings associated with anticipation and start actually embracing the feelings that are positive that come with doing, the real feelings. Often we feel negative about something because of anticipation, when actually, in reality, when we're in the present moment doing that action, we have so many positive feelings around it. If we could just be more present and do, and not have to wait for things to be perfect and relieve that pressure, then we can sit with the positive feelings and build the trust and proof that we need to get started the next time. That was a beautiful segue into the episode today. I want to talk today about what breaking the promises to yourself is doing to your self-trust. This one is really going to change the way you think and the way that you set goals for yourself and how you show up for yourself moving forward. I really want to break down a lot of shame today because a lot of us feel very, very guilty that when we don't do the things that we want to do, when we don't get them done, when we don't tick it off, it's hard. It's really hard. We always set ourselves such goals that we want to meet, and if we don't end up meeting them, we're really hard on ourselves, and it also creates this belief within ourselves that we don't believe we can do it. It's removing the trust that we have for ourselves, and it's not working. It's not working. It's not how we improve. It's not how we stay consistent. It's making us inconsistent, and it's validating the inconsistency because we don't trust ourselves that we're going to keep showing up. Whether it's, for me, just in my podcasting process, or for a runner in their marathon process, I'll just go on the run tomorrow. It was just 1 mile today. I'll just do that 1 mile tomorrow. I'll do 2 miles tomorrow instead to make up for it. What we're doing is we're increasing the pressure and making it harder to start because we've procrastinated. What makes us think that if we couldn't run 1 mile today, that we're going to run 2 tomorrow to make up for it? What makes us think that's going to be any easier to start? The mental barrier of having to run 1 mile over starting and running 2, what logically makes us think that we're going to start? Whether you've put off your run today or you've put off something else today and you're telling yourself that tomorrow or next week you're going to do double to make up for it, please drop that mindset because we both know it's not going to happen. And by increasing the pressure and the task and increasing the target, moving the goalposts because of what has not been done today or right now or this week, because we couldn't start at something lower, please don't move the goalpost to be higher for next week. It's not going to happen. You're going to feel worse about it after not doing it again, and you're not making it easy to start. If you couldn't find it easy to start this week or today, actually you may need to reduce it further instead of increase it because it's not meeting your goal and your plan. Forget the timeline, forget the plan. I know if you've got a date for a marathon and you need to run the marathon on that day, that's going to happen. I get that. But putting that time limit on yourself is also increasing the pressure. A lot of us call our inconsistency when we don't do what we say we're going to do that day and increase it and double it for tomorrow. We call that laziness, and we blame ourselves and we feel really guilty because of the shame that we couldn't even do this simple task or something that we perceived as simple or simple enough to start. And maybe it was simple enough to start, but the mental barriers we were placing on it, all the things we were anticipating that needed to happen in order to have the right conditions to start. For some people it is perfectionism, but it's the fear of failure. It's the fear of not doing it how you're supposed to do it. It's the fear of being incorrect. If we can remove that fear, we completely lower the boundary for starting. We put so much pressure on ourselves for it to have to be a certain way that we've envisioned it. Starting never is perfect. Starting is always messy. If we can accept that starting is always messy, it's so much easier to start because we're not expecting ourselves to be the same way we're going to be at the end. We call it lazy. We feel really bad and we put this shame on ourselves and we beat ourselves up about what we don't get done. And we decide that if we can do double tomorrow, it will all be worth it, and it invalidates this feeling of feeling lazy and that we're not good enough. But what we're doing is we're setting unrealistic goals for ourselves. We're setting ourselves up to fail. Yes, the risk is that you could do it and you'll feel great about it. But when has that ever happened? When has that ever worked before? Moving the goalposts, increasing it to unrealistic expectations for ourselves, is setting yourself up to fail. And if you're promising yourself you're going to do it, and you're setting yourself up to fail, when you don't do it, you then don't trust yourself to do it tomorrow, to even start tomorrow, to even do anything tomorrow. But every time we don't meet what we say we're going to do, we're eroding that self-trust. We're eroding that belief that we can do it and that we are going to do it because we're stacking up the evidence against ourselves that it's not going to happen. Maybe that's why we do set such unrealistic expectations for ourselves. because we're seeking something that we know is not going to happen. Sometimes it is a good idea to set goals that are double what you think you can do. Sometimes that is good. For some people and in some circumstances that is good. Because if you don't push yourself in your goals, then you don't actually enable yourself to unlock your full potential because you're selling yourself short. For the people that are already in routine with something and are already consistent, once you have achieved consistency, that is where it's great to double your goal. That is the point where it's great, but until that point, we're setting ourselves up to fail. If you're not consistent at something already, don't double the goal. Make it easier to start. The first goal of any long-term goal that we're setting ourselves for, I'm going to stick with this marathon example, which is really ironic because I have never run a marathon. If we were setting ourselves up to run a marathon, you could book yourself in for a marathon so that you have to do it. But the first goal should really be just going on daily runs. You don't even need to work up the distance or be on a program working towards the marathon yet. The first goal should be consistently going on runs every day, or 5 times a week, or however often you want to run. The first goal to any long-term goal should be consistency, because once we're consistent, we can already trust ourselves to show up. And that means that we can set ourselves a larger goal and that we can increase our capacity, we can increase our output, because we're already doing the basics of showing up every day. Something that we can do to actually get started and start working on the consistency. This is a mindset that I love. It comes from a book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. It's a very well-known book. Some of you may have heard it. For those of you that haven't, the point of the book is to do the hardest thing first in your day. So when you have your list of tasks for a day, get it out the way, and then the rest of the day it's easy to keep going. How many of us have started our day with, let's say, 5 or 10 tasks that we need to get done, and because we're procrastinating the first task, none of those tasks that day get done, so they all get pushed to tomorrow? How many people has that happened to? Come on, raise your hands, come on. It happens to all of us. We all do this. We'll actually get so many more tasks done that day if we do the hardest first, because every task after that becomes easier. There is something in that which I think works for a lot of people, but I will also argue that I'm someone that actually prefers to do the easiest task first because it's the lowest friction for entry. If you have a list of 5 or 10 to do that day, sure, you could do the hard task first, get it over and done with. But I actually want to add an extra layer onto this, which is do the easiest first and then do the hardest second. If you do the easiest first, the quickest win, you've already ticked something off your list and you've proven to yourself that you can get on with the day and start. When you get to celebrate a win, whatever it is, even if it's brushing your teeth or whatever, turn it into something that becomes part of your checklist, up to 20 minutes maximum. When you already feel accomplished, it's easier to do more and to feel that you can do the harder tasks. When you've done that hardest task, the rest of the day feels like less effort and flows naturally. Also, by putting your hardest task first, you're putting your most important task first. So when you do that task, if that's the one thing you get done today, great. Everything else can get pushed back because that's the one main task you needed to do that day. So yes, I agree with Brian Tracy. Eat that frog, do the hardest thing first, but in order to break the barrier and the friction, do the easiest thing first. And for me, that has been the game changer for what has helped me not procrastinate and get on with my day and be really productive. I don't want this to be a productivity episode though, but every time you do that larger task, you build up the trust with yourself again, and it's easier to do it again tomorrow. What do they say? It's like 30 days or so to build a habit. I kind of find that after the first week of being consistent, it's easier to keep going, but make sure that you have more than one day back to back. Have at least a week back to back where you've planned a small task followed by your one big task. It makes it so much easier to keep going. And as we already established, consistency is the first goal and the next goal is the bigger goal. So whatever that is, it becomes so much easier. Another reason why you may not be starting and you may not be showing up for yourself and you're eroding that self-trust might not be because of fear of failure or it not being perfect conditions. The real gap may be the distance between who you believe yourself to be right now and who you believe the person doing that task and achieving that goal is. There is a gap there, and we show up for what we identify with rather than what we want. So if we don't feel that we're good enough to be achieving that yet, and we're already there, it becomes harder to start because we don't identify with the person that would achieve that goal. If you believe yourself to be an entrepreneur, but you've never started working on an idea, you're not identifying with being an entrepreneur. And so it's harder to start because you don't believe yourself to be the kind of person. This is the thing. It's the kind of person to do this or the kind of person to do that. The second we can associate ourselves with being that kind of person and believe ourselves to be that person, and this is backed up by evidence of just taking the first step with an idea, even if it's rubbish, we can then shift our perception of who we are now to who we want to be. We don't become who we want to be overnight, but we have to change that belief and close that belief gap because that's what's keeping us there and stuck. And that's what's making us not start, not show up and break the promise to ourselves. It might not even be something that you're consciously associating yourself with. I don't associate myself with being an entrepreneur, therefore I can't even start working on an idea. It may be I can't be the kind of person that would commit to working on an idea every day. It may be that you do believe yourself to be that kind of person or the kind of person you want to become, and you do believe that version of you is there and it exists and you identify with it, but you don't act on it because it would be a change from who you've been so far, who you've been up until that exact moment. And changing the action of that statement of identity is really hard. It's also really hard to show up for an identity you want to be when you kind of want to be that, but you don't genuinely believe that's who you are at your core. And that's the kind of person you're going to be. You can believe, I really want to become an entrepreneur, but ultimately, deep down, you believe yourself to be someone who isn't creative or isn't capable of building something of your own. And therefore, you can't ever close that gap because you're holding these two conflicting ideas about yourself. The first way to actually change that is to change that belief about yourself. The only way we can improve ourselves and become the versions of ourselves that we want is if it genuinely is who we are at our core, who we can be at our core. It doesn't have to be who we are right now in this second, but who we have the potential to be. And that is all within us, based on what feels natural for us to do. Some things, some goals aren't meant for everyone. You can go and chase them, you can put in all the effort, you can go for it. But if you're still not able to keep your promise to yourself, and it's not a fear of failure, it's not a belief statement or anything like that, it may just genuinely be because you don't have the capacity for that goal as the person that you are. It might not be the right goal for you. It might not be the right way to go forward, the right way to achieve the larger goal. For example, again, with the marathon, the larger goal may be to get fit, or the larger goal may be to build more mental endurance. Whatever that larger goal may be as to why you want to run that marathon or why you want whatever goal it is you have, running the marathon may not be the right way forward for that goal for you. And so when you can understand what the best goal is for you, because it's for you, it's not what everyone else is doing, you can find a way to achieve that larger goal. Another kind of promise that we break sometimes aren't what we're setting for ourselves to do, but the boundaries that we set with other people and what we allow to happen. Sometimes we decide, I'm not going to tolerate this, or this isn't okay with me, and then we allow it to happen again. And every time we let that happen, we're breaking the trust for ourselves that we deserve certain treatment or certain things that happen to us. I wanted to mention this, but I do want to do a whole episode specifically on boundaries because I think there's so much to say on that. So I don't want to say too much more, but boundaries are definitely another kind of promise we make to ourselves that we can break, and it erodes our self-trust as well. Trust in ourselves, but not just in how we show up. It's more in the things that we're allowing to happen to us and the things that we're choosing we deserve because of our belief and conditioning every time we allow someone to cross one of our boundaries. These are all things that I have struggled with at one point or another. And still to this day, I always have things where if I'm getting started with something, it's hard to start because, well, starting is the hardest thing. When we don't have those identity beliefs about ourselves and we don't have the consistency or the trust to back it up, and we've eroded that self-trust, and we have fears about failing or unknown or any other fears that are making it hard to start, the things that I always came back to, this was something I heard from a very young age and really stuck with me, and something that I actively lived by because it's something we can all get behind. It's the start for 5 minutes method. This is the idea that whatever it is, no matter how bad the task is, you say to yourself, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. If I really hate it that much, after 5 minutes, I'll stop. This was something that worked incredibly well for me because for me, a lot of the time, the barrier was about starting something I knew I wasn't good at but had to do. And we all have those things that we need to do but don't want to do. And they're the things we often procrastinate the most. But we want to be the kind of person that does these things anyway, and so we end up labeling ourselves as lazy or whatever because those tasks are the hardest to do and they're creating this belief within ourselves. We're not actually lazy, as we've established. We aren't necessarily the right person for those specific tasks in a perfect world, but we all have tasks that we have to do where there is this mental friction. And this is where I use the 5-minute start method, because most of the time, no task is genuinely that bad that after 5 minutes, you want to stop. After 5 minutes, it's actually so much easier to keep going than to stop. Even if it's not the most fun thing to do, by the fact alone that we've completed 5 minutes of that task already, we already have a mini win. We already feel a little bit accomplished, and that little bit of accomplishment gives us the fuel to keep going and finish the task because we already know we can do it. Sometimes we just need a little bit of proof to know we can do it to keep going. And this is why between the easy task first, then the eat the frog, the hardest task, and the 5-minute start method, genuinely, I love these little techniques because this is really what's helped me. Don't get me wrong, I still can know these methods, and there's been times where I've not put them into practice. Sometimes the mental resistance is just there and it's really hard to break down. But if you can understand why you're physically reacting to those things in a certain way, you can understand what you need to get forward and the technique you need to go forward, or what it's actually doing psychologically on a deeper level. And sometimes just knowing alone that you're breaking trust with yourself by not doing it again, that's enough for you to want to prove it to yourself. As soon as you've done it once, whatever it is, as soon as you've done it for 5 minutes, and then you've done it once, and then you've done it a few more times, it's so much easier to keep going and to become consistent because you're building up this proof of the past. This is a concept Tamkor came up with or spoke about, and I love this phrase, and so I kind of want to borrow it from her because she has this thing of your portfolio of proof. Your portfolio of proof is everything that you've done to prove that you can do it and you can do it again. And once you've done it, it's so much easier to believe you can do it. It creates the trust again, the self-trust that you are the kind of person that can do this kind of thing. You identify with it. So sometimes when we have really hard hurdles in front of us in life, if we've not been through anything like that before, it's really hard to believe we're going to get through it. It's really hard to believe that. But if we've been through difficulties in life before, on a similar level, on a similar scale, similar scenario, we may not be okay in that moment, but we know we're going to be able to get through it because of what we've done before and how we've got through it before. This is why this portfolio of proof is so important for our self-trust and for our sense of self, because it helps us keep going when it gets hard. It helps us try again. It helps us know that we'll be able to achieve something and so much more. Every time we can use what we have as proof to propel us forward, we open up the possibilities of being able to achieve so much more and trusting ourselves that we are capable of so much more. If we have limiting beliefs, it's often because we don't have anything that's proof enough yet that we can do anything half as good. That's what limits us in life. If we can get past that and we can remember those things that we do, it helps us excel and really thrive and move forward. With major things in our life, it's really easy to remember these things and to use them as our portfolio of proof to propel us forward. But when it comes to little tasks, the things that we need to get us started, we don't usually turn to this portfolio of proof. This was something I was doing a lot when I was really focusing on my growth, which was, at the end of the day, one of my journal prompts was everything I achieved today. Nothing was too small. It included everything from brushing my teeth, getting dressed, putting on a nice outfit, getting out of bed, going on a walk, getting to the gym, to the bigger tasks like submitting a large piece of coursework that took me so long and I worked really hard on. So any of these things, every single small thing I wrote down, because when I could see it visually in front of me how much I completed that day, it made me achieve so much more the next day. And I turned this into a habit because doing it once is fine and it can feel a little bit pointless because it feels like it's served its purpose through doing it once. But actually, the more you do it and you make it a habit, it means that every day you're sitting in this energy of trusting yourself to achieve a lot because you can physically see it. And this was something that really helped me become really productive and consistent and trust myself to show up, because I had the proof right in front of me. Every single day I turned over a new page and I had this list. This is something I really recommend for anyone, especially if you're struggling with productivity, if you're getting started, because this is like your mini portfolio of proof, but it's just a reminder to yourself and a mental shift in how you see everything you do. By celebrating every single thing, you create the small wins, and every time you celebrate something, you're sitting in this positive energy of feeling accomplished. When you feel that you can accomplish something, you feel that you can accomplish something bigger. So that's why it starts with the little tasks that are so easy for us, because if we can celebrate those, we can celebrate something a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. There was actually a time where I was struggling where I turned to this and I can remember so vividly on a particular day. I got out of bed and I literally cheered. I threw my fists in the air and I was like, yes, Naomi, I got out of bed. And that can sound a little bit weird and a little bit crazy, but it felt really good because I was sitting in this positive energy. And then I went downstairs and I brushed my teeth. Yes, Naomi, I brushed my teeth. And I would do this and then I'd make myself a really healthy breakfast. And I felt that I wanted a healthier breakfast that morning because I'd already felt this positive energy of what I was capable of. Yes, I've just had a really tasty, amazing breakfast. Yes, go me, I'm a chef. And then it got to later in the day and I'd achieved so much that day. If you look at it in perspective, like out of nowhere, it looked like I had this really amazing, productive day after feeling really stagnant. But what really helped me was just celebrating those small wins. And that day flipped on its head. It set the precedent so much higher. And I made it a habit for a week to really celebrate every small win. After a week, I didn't really need to be celebrating getting out of bed anymore, granted. But what I was doing, I was writing these things down in my journal and celebrating still everything that I did that day. So I could see the accumulation of everything. Even if it was going to the shops to do the food shop for the week, like every single task, no matter how mundane it is so important because it's still a task you have done and completed. And that proof in itself changes the way you view yourself and your self-trust. You just sometimes need a little bit of encouragement for yourself. And from there, every single day that I was celebrating myself, I was working on these bigger goals. This was at the time when I was finishing my degree and I had lots of work and it almost felt unachievable, the amount of work I had to do. It probably was to a normal person, but for some reason I got it done and I did really well because I knew the task ahead of me and I knew that I had to celebrate the small wins to get it done and to turn things around, and I did that.
And this was coming from a time where I felt really burnt out as well. So I was doing that, but I would also spend time doing things I loved, like having a specific downtime for myself, or scheduled time to read my book, or something like that, that was away from a screen, that was genuinely just things that I loved. Time that was energizing me because it was self-care. Scheduling that self-care is so important. And every time you do that self-care, that is a celebration too. That is a celebration that you had self-care. It's not just self-soothing. It isn't. It really is a celebration to have that time, because we often dismiss that time as unimportant because it doesn't feel productive. But it really is productive, because self-care time means that we don't burn out. When we have time specific for productivity and specific time for ourselves, and we're not just filling that time for ourselves with mindless scrolling or things that aren't very important or meaningful, or actually caring for ourselves. I would make time to paint my nails. I would make time to do things that made me feel the best version of myself. The little things that take time but mean that I am then able to show up better the next day, because I feel better, because I have more energy. I was feeling so burnt out in the middle of my degree, and I turned that around because I started making time for self-care, celebrating that self-care amongst all my small tasks. And it meant that the bigger tasks were inevitable, that I was going to achieve them. And that's exactly what happened. When I finished at the end of all of that, I made more time to do an even larger self-care task, I guess, but something that I really wanted to do because I'd worked so hard. And when we believe that productivity and working hard and working towards a goal is reliant on us not looking after ourselves and having self-care time, that's where we burn out, and that's where we again lose trust for ourselves. So it's really important to build in that self-care too. So whatever it is that you are consistently putting off, you are consistently doubling again tomorrow, and the thing that is breaking your trust for yourself. I've given you a few techniques that I really loved and things that really worked for me. I really hope that today's episode has given you a different way of looking at it, because when you can understand that it's eroding your self-trust and that's the reason why you're not making the progress, you really change your mindset as to how you approach a goal. And when you can do that, it makes that goal so much more achievable. And I really want you all to achieve your goals and to trust yourself. And trusting yourself isn't just limited to a goal and to achieving certain things. It is also tied to your belief of self, your sense of self, and what you believe you are worth and what you believe you are valued to be. We are all worth so much, and a lot of us don't believe that we're worth as much as we are, and hold ourselves to a reduced value. But actually, the barrier is so much easier to fix than we think. And when we can fix that self-trust, we fix our self-worth, we fix our beliefs around ourselves, our identity, and it becomes so much easier to trust our inner voice when it's telling us what we're meant to be doing and what the way forward is. We don't believe that because we don't trust ourselves. That voice really knows the direction that we need to take ourselves in, but we can't trust that voice until we've built up that portfolio of proof. I'm still working on this every day. We're always working on this every day. We're always working on our self-trust. And we'll get there, and the more we do right, the more we allow for our future selves to be possible. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I really loved recording this one. If you loved it too, please leave a rating. It really helps get the podcast to any woman that really needs to hear it. And I would really, really love to hear your thoughts. Please leave me a comment, a review, send me a DM on Instagram at Yalara Collective. I will leave it in the show notes as always. I really love hearing your perspectives and thoughts on things. So be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss a future episode. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.